Hello students, and welcome to this new lecture of our video series Evolution and Scope of Human Resource Management. In last video we discussed about evolution of the human resource management. Now in continuation with that, today we are going to have a look at the scope of human resource management as a discipline. In this video I am giving you three food for thoughts, essentially three thoughts. First is the dimensions of human resource management as a discipline. Second would be the 9 subsystems of human resources management as defined by Indian Institute of Personnel Management. And third would be the 10 points which are basically the extract of modern thinkers. So let us begin with our new lecture. I am Dr. Ritvik J. Gandhe and you are witnessing another video on scope of HRM. Let's start. As discussed earlier, first we will have a look at the dimensions of human resource management. There are three dimensions basically which all the scholars talk about. Whether you take the extracts from the European scholars or you take the extracts from American scholars, and even more, if you take the extract from Indian scholars, you will find they have more or less classified the HRM scope, the scope of the discipline of HRM into these three dimensions. What are these three dimensions? The Indian Institute of Personnel Management, in consensus with all existing literature, has given these three dimensions. First is the labor dimension. Second one, the employee welfare dimension. And the third one is industrial relation dimension. So the labor dimension basically talks about all kind of literature, all kind of issues that are deeply connected with the labor, or so to say, the human resource, the individuals, the people who are working in the organizations. So everything that is connected with the individuals is one dimension of human resource management discipline. The second dimension which Indian Institute of Personnel Management talks about is employee welfare dimension. So the key word is welfare here. Welfare. Everything which is pertaining to the welfare of the individual who are working at a particular place, or a group of them is working at different organizations, their welfare is the supreme concern. And that concern is basically covered in this particular HRM discipline. Third dimension which Indian Institute of Personnel Management talks about is industrial relation dimension. So the literature of HRM discipline can be further classified into a third part, which is industrial relations. So the difference between one organization to another, their relationship, the kind of relationship that they share with each other, the management to management dialogue, the negotiations, if there are any conflicts, then managing the conflicts. In general, the entire literature pertaining to the relationship management between the organizations. So, thus, there are three dimensions of HRM which are given by Indian Institute of Personnel Management. Next issue, as I have promised you to give another thought, another food for thought, and that is subsystems of human resource management. Now, the American Society for Training and Development, that's a very important keyword. You should remember this particular institution. The American Society for Training and Development is a world recognized training and development institution for the employees. They have a number of courses also which are available online as well as offline for the citizens of United States. But the American Society for Training and Development, in their classical study, have recommended 9 subsystems which they define as the scope of human resources management. So this is, students, another view of looking at how the scope of HRM discipline has been defined. Now, what are these 9 subsystems? That's a very crucial question. And let us find out those 9 subsystems and why these 9 subsystems are so important. They are so important because they provide the competitive edge to the organizations, because this 9 subsystem model explains that every subsystem works in collaboration with each other, they interact and they provide the competitive edge that we will see later. So what are those 9 subsystems? The American Institute defines that training and development is the core function, the first and foremost function for any organization, and that is the first matter of importance for any HR discipline or any department that is dealing with the human resources management. So whenever we talk about HRM, essentially we have to deal with training and development of whom? Of course, of the employees. Our main concern is employee or employees rather, groups of employees, task groups, employee groups, number of groups who are working for the organization. Second is organizational development. Now this is considered as a separate discipline these days. The scholars and students who study organizational behavior, they further study about organizational development also. So OD has become an independent discipline these days. So this is a very wide branch of study which basically studies all these strategies of development of the organizations. So that is OD, which is one of the core 9 subsystems of HRM as per the American Institute. Organization and job design. This is another core subsystem of the HR. If you want to study human resource management, one has to understand the job design and organization design. So what should be the job like? What exactly are the responsibilities of a particular job? All that is called job analysis and job profiling. That is a key area of HRM. Another thing is human resource planning. Now you can understand human resource planning in a simple way that it is an inventory. It's a kind of an inventory management, but normally in inventory management we manage the stock of goods. But here you can say it is the inventory management of individuals. It is basically the art of managing inlay and outlay of employees. For example, IT companies. It's a very volatile sector in terms of HR. IT companies based in India, they are always in demand of employees. Why? It is because they don't know, and in fact their demand of workers is very volatile, is very fluctuating. They don't know at what point in time, at which point in time they are going to need how many people, because it is based on purely the orders and the work that is assigned to them. I mean, they are actually bidding for projects, different projects, and their clients are either in US or Europe, across the globe, anywhere. And depending upon the work that they are getting from their clients, they need people to work on those projects. So they don't exactly know how and how many people and at what point in time they would require. So it's very important. In such circumstances, HR planning is very, very important, because the HR department has to take care of the fact that whenever there is a need, there is a peak demand of the employees, they need to procure, literally procure the people. So the procurement of the people is basically called HR planning. So what do they do? How do they mitigate this problem? That's another discussion. But to tell you in brief, what they do is they hire young staff and young talent in bulk, and they keep them on desk because that they can afford, and they give them some nominal stipend or a salary which is just a kind of a beginner will be happy with that. Once you are actually beginning your career, so you will be happy with that salary, but that is not a great amount. That's not a great compensation. But as soon as some work is awarded to them, they will deploy that staff for that particular project. And there the real salary starts, because then the salary comes from the client. Anyway, so that's another, as I told you, another discussion all about. Then selection and staffing, which is very much related to this. Who to select for which project is also the function of HR, is also the key area of HR. So that becomes another major area of HR discipline. Selection, who is basically fit for what job. So there is a theory, students, known as PE fit, Person Environment Fit theory. This theory talks about that a particular person is fit for a particular environment. For example, if you people are, some of you are very good at handling the videos or editing the videos, so then you might be given a particular job where the video editing is a skill which is required. So depending upon what sort of skills, what sort of inclination you have, you will be given the task by your HR manager. So that is called person environment fit. So that is an art of selection of people and basically managing the staff. So that is another key area of HR. Next is personal research and information systems. So research and information systems, basically managing the MIS, the management information systems for employee and staff management. So information system, as you are aware, maintaining all the records, all the information regarding employees, their leaves, their salaries, their incentives, their special assignments, etc. Number of things are there, and a good HR department keeps a track of all these things. So, and once you have the database of all these things, you can do a lot of research as to what's actually happening in the organization. So that is called personal and research information systems. That's a key area of HR. Then compensation benefits, of course, who to incentivize with what? That's a key question. Of course, it's a managerial decision and it's a HR decision. It's a human resources related managerial decision. The management of the organization decides who to incentivize and for what purpose. What component of your compensation should be the fixed component? What component of your salary should be the variable component? How to structurize the salary? How to provide other benefits? How to incentivize different kind of employees in a different way, so that the morale is up and the employees feel motivated. So that is compensation and benefits. All the management actually pertaining to all these things is another area of HR. Then employee assistance, basically this is another subsystem of human resources management, whereby the HR department or HR people think in order to facilitate the people who are working for them. So because HR behooves the responsibility is of facilitating people also, not just basically to make them work, but to see that whether they are in a conducive environment to work. So that is called employee assistance, all sorts of assistance. Then the last but not the least, a very important function is union and labor relations. In most of the organizations, in modern day organizations, this is not a big challenge, because in many of the organizations these days, at the time of appointment, there is a contract written, and in contract, many organizations prefer to put a clause whereby they explicitly mention that no unionism will be tolerated and the employees will not be entertained if they join any union, and they are discouraged from this. But this is the new thinking. But as per the old thinking and old rules and laws, still there are organizations, and sometimes by the government rules also, the union is allowed, and the labor relations. So basically, the dealing with different labor unions, dealing with different employee associations, rightfully demanding their, rightfully trying to negotiate their work conditions and other things related to work life. That is also something which is very important department and important area of HR, and that is called the 9th subsystem of HR. Now, as I told you, all these 9 subsystems are illustrated as they provide competitive edge to the organizations. If the HR people, HR department do not understand these 9 subsystems, if they do not really understand the scope of this particular discipline, then they won't be much successful in their assignments. So, in order to understand the scope of human resource management as a discipline, these 9 subsystems are very important. You should keep them in mind. The next food for thought, as I had promised in the beginning of this particular lecture, is 10 points of the modern day thinkers. Now, this is okay. That was a particular way of looking at how to define the scope of HRM by a particular American institution, very renowned one. But now the I am actually presenting you the extract, the very summary of what the modern day scholars think about and how do they define the scope of the HR management. Have a look at these 10 points. The modern day experts highlight these 10 simple points to define scope of human resource management, and these are, I'll just read some of these points for your convenience, and you all know now. By this time we have discussed all these things in general, but this is a way to represent certain thing. Assessment of company human resources. First job of HR discipline is to assess the company human resources or the organization's human resources. Then reviewing the jobs in the organization. Reviewing of job is another area where HR has to deal. Now it is the summary of the modern day thinkers. Third is interviewing and selection. All agree that conducting interview and selecting employee, basically recruitment, is the main, one of the fundamental aspects of human resource discipline, human resource management discipline. Then introduction and orientation. Many people call induction also. For example, whenever there is a new recruit in the organization, to orient them with the organization is also one of the important areas of HRM discipline. So introducing people, orienting them time and again for the different tasks, etc. is a key component of HRM. As you know, remuneration and benefits, different types of remuneration, different types of benefits, different types of compensation, all that is studying and designing and devising for the benefit of the employee and the organization. That is the area of the HR. Then employees' growth prospects, constantly thinking about how the employees will grow is another area. And training on the job, as you know, training on the job, that's very important. Constantly looking for different needs of employees so that they can be trained. And employees' satisfaction, doing something which will make employees satisfied, making them satisfied. Now there is a literature, if you will search on Google also and somewhere also in online, many places, and that is called employee engagement. So many things pertaining to employee engagement is actually employee satisfaction. How to keep employees satisfied, how to engage, how to keep them engaged in the organization. And the last two are employees' grievance and redressal. Many modern scholars think that a good HR department or basically one of the important component of HRM is basically to redress the grievances of the employees, or there has to be a system which takes care of the complaints of the employees. So that's very important. This is a very modern concept. As you saw, it was not present earlier, but now it is there. And of course, the labor and trade unions. Now here, one point I would like to highlight is that the labor and trade unions, as you know, it's a 10th point given by the modern scholars. Basically, the importance of this unionism and trade unionism and labor unionism has been reduced by all kind of scholars, because many of the modern day scholars think that these are basically the obstacles in the productivity and growth of the organizations. And so therefore the capitalist thinking also suggests that one should avoid such places for basically establishment of the organization where there is an environment of unionism. So in nutshell, these are the points whereby you can explain the scope of the human resources management. And I have given you three basically thoughts. First is 3 dimensions. Second is 9 subsystems, and third is 10 points given by the modern day scholars. Thank you very much. We will see you in the next lecture.